My name is David Steele. I'm the principal architect at Crunchy Data, principal author of PG Backrest, and maintainer of PG Audit. So I originally became involved in the community by going to conferences. Went to the New York conference first, branched out to Postgres Open. Been using Postgres for quite a long time, since 1999. But I hadn't really been involved with the community, and as I started using Postgres more in a corporate setting, convincing companies to use it, I started going to more conferences to get more knowledge about Postgres, and then eventually I started also speaking at those conferences, speaking about architecture, speaking about what I knew, transmitting that knowledge. And then I started working on a project called PG Backrest, which is designed to deal with extremely large data volumes, backup, restore, parallelism, etc. And as I started doing that, I started getting also more into the Postgres code base, thinking about contributing backup solutions to Postgres, and that brought me more into the community and became a regular on Hackers, and etc. etc. And I've mostly been focused on backup, audit, security as it relates to backup, but I've been expanding the patches I've been working on and getting into more and more areas as I go. So the primary project I work on is called PG Backrest. It is backup software for Postgres that you can get separately. It's not actually deployed with core. And the idea is to add a lot of features that are not available in PG-based backup. For instance, parallelism, expiration, different types of backup strategies. There's lots of checks to make sure that the backup is actually working correctly and that you have all the wall segments you need, and etc. The other big project I work on is called PG Audit, which is audit software for Postgres that allows you to keep an audit log of tables that users are querying, inserting, updating to from. It allows you to get really granular about what you're looking at, what you need to monitor. So both of those projects have involved me making contributions back to the community, primarily as an adjunct to the external projects I'm working on, but find ways to make small modifications to Postgres or little changes, new APIs, expose APIs that allow the PG Audit and the PG Backrest software to work more smoothly. And while I've been at that, I've actually made improvements to Postgres itself, primarily to PG-based backup, mostly in the sense of adding exclusions, trying to make the backup more efficient, finding files that don't need to be included in the backup and getting rid of those, reviewing other patches that are related to backup and recovery. I've also served as the commit fest manager for 3 years running now. I think what I enjoy most about contributing is, Postgres is a world-class piece of software. Lots of people all over the world run it. It's real relational database software, and so I think it's pretty cool that I can write my own piece of code and contribute it and have that come up as a feature in this amazing, complex piece of software. That's absolutely the best part of it. I think it's also fun as a developer working on open source because you can actually point people to what you've done. And you can say, hey, if you want to know what I've been working on, I did this, that, and the other. And those were pretty cool projects. And people can go look at the code, use your feature. People tell me all the time, hey, I used this or I used that, or I think that was a cool feature. And, it's my job, but I also get a lot of satisfaction from it. Well, I think the most challenging part of community work in a lot of ways is the fact that it is a community. You can't just, there's no one directly in charge. You can't just say, I'm going to add this feature to Postgres and that's just the way it's going to be. There needs to be a consensus. You need to get together with people. You need to convince them the feature is useful. You need to convince them that your code is good. You need to get to reviews from the community. You can't just commit something into Postgres. You've got to have people look at it and review it. They'll request changes, some of which maybe you don't totally agree with, but you've got to know that the consensus-driven model is how we work, and so you need to take their input and apply it, improve your patches, and at the end of the day, the system works really well. But just like working in any community or with a group of people, there can be frustrating moments. One of the things I really enjoy about going to conferences is just the people. we work as a community, and most of the time we're working over emails, sometimes Slack, occasionally a Hangout. It's hard to get to know people through those mediums. I think that one of the biggest, I hate to use the word team building, but to a large extent, that's the way I see the conferences, because the Postgres community is a team. We're producing software together, and the opportunity to, chat with people in the hallway, go out and grab a couple of beers, that kind of thing, really get to know people personally, maybe a little bit about their family, the country they live in, really helps me understand them, and that understanding actually helps me work with them better. So I think a great way to start contributing to Postgres is actually by reviewing patches. We understand that not everyone is a dyed-in-the-wool C programmer. It's obviously a huge code base. It can take quite a bit of time to really get involved. Reading hackers can be tough. So review is a great way to get involved. You don't really have to even understand C. If you're reviewing a patch that implements a feature, you can just test it out. You do need to be able to compile it. That's relatively simple. Then you can run Postgres and you can try the feature. Does it work as advertised? Does it do what the documentation says it does? It's an excellent way to get involved because you don't actually have to kind of go out on a limb and produce your own patch. Criticizing is always fun, right? So if you want to get involved and you've been thinking about it, go to the CommitFest app and do some reviews. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope I see you on Hackers or at a conference.